What's good, YouTube? This your boy Jay Rich, and I'm in this bitch. You feel me? Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's go, bro. You know what I'm saying? We in this bitch. We cooling. You know what I'm saying? We finna watch this see if really spider webs are really strong as like we really think they are. Like, like,
Yes.
are they really stronger than steel? Like, do y'all think that spider webs is really stronger than steel, bro? If y'all do, comment like yes. If y'all don't, comment no. You feel me? But we finna watch this video, bro. Learn some junk. You feel me? I learn stuff too, bro. I don't just sit here and just watch funny junk. I learn stuff too. But at the same time, let's get this, man. Let's see how this is, man. Let's see if spider web really stronger than steel, bro. Let's get it.
Absolutely.
Oh, and y'all like, comment, subscribe, bro. It help the algorithm. You feel me? Push my videos out there to more people. You feel me? But let's get it. Let's go.
And that's partly because it's function in a web like this. You know, a bug hits it to stop that moving bug.
I just
most of the
noticed.
work is done
Hold
by
on,
the
y'all. I
dragline
got something
itself.
going on.
To do this, the dragline silk has to be incredibly strong. So to find out how it compares to steel, we wanted to run a test. But it turns out that getting the sample isn't so easy. Alright, we've taken a garden variety spider and knocked it unconscious.
What the heck?
This is the largest amount of spider silk that's ever been put together for a test like this. So I'm going to put it to the ultimate test and try to be the first person ever to swing from spider silk. I don't know if it's going to hold my weight, so let's see. In 3, 2, 1.
In Spider-Man 2, Peter Parker is on a runaway train full of passengers. And to stop it from
Yeah,
derailing,
I didn't
he
watch
stands
it.
in front of the train,
Wait, hold on.
fires webs at the buildings around him, and holds on.
I think I did. I don't know.
Webs stretch, some of them snap, but they do just enough to slow down the train and save everyone on board. It sounds like something straight out of a
Hey man, my shit still a little fidgety right now, bro. So if my junk look crazy,
well,
don't worry about it.
This incredible. It's reportedly stronger than steel. It's pretty
They
strong.
get greater later.
Crazy. And 10 times tougher than Kevlar. To find out if that's really true,
That's
I went
crazy.
to the Blackledge Spider Lab at the University of Akron, one of the world's leading research centers studying spider silk. Before I went to the lab, I'd always assumed that a spider web was made from just one kind of silk. But that's actually not the case. One type of silk anchors the
my
web to a
G.
surface. Another forms this stretchy spiral, and a different sticky silk catches prey.
Yeah.
Once something's trapped, the spider switches to yet another silk to wrap it up.
And the threads are all, thinner than your hair, so they're going to look pretty similar to each other unless you use a microscope.
Yeah, that's
All
crazy.
in all, there are 7 different types of silk, but the strongest is the dragline silk, which holds the web in its place.
We've got
The dragline silk, did anybody know this?
So, the spokes on the wagon wheel and the outer framework here, that's all the dragline silk. It's called
Let me know if
major
anybody knew
silk,
this.
if you want the fancy word.
Major Abu is that one that...
And don't be lying, my nigga. We know you don't know this right now.
Absolutely. And that's partly because it's function in a web like this. A bug hits it to stop that moving bug. Most of the work is done by the dragline silk.
To do this, the dragline silk has to be incredibly strong. So to find out how it compares to steel, we wanted to run a test. But it turns out that getting the sample isn't so easy. Alright, we've taken a garden variety spider and knocked it unconscious using CO2. We brought it over here and we put it down with tape. I then started pulling out the dragline silk by hand. It's so light that you can barely feel it. And we've attached it to this big rotating mechanism which they custom made to milk spiders.
They custom made something to milk spiders, bro. Humans always custom making something to milk something. Fuck, we need to milk a spider for, bro.
No spiders were harmed today.
Now that we've got our silk, we can put one strand into a machine that slowly pulls on our sample. And as it pulls, we'll monitor
You can
its
barely
changes
see
and
that
properties.
bit.
When you pull on the silk, that force is spread over a tiny cross-sectional area. If you divide the force by that area, you get the stress. Now, as you pull, the silk is also stretching. To see just how much, we divide the change in length by the original length to get a measure called the strain.
The strain.
At first, as the stress increases, the strain increases roughly in proportion. And if we stop pulling here, the silk would spring back to its original length. But keep pulling, and eventually it passes a point where some of that stretching becomes permanent.
And it's pulling.
Alright, you filmed that, I'm gonna be filming this.
And it broke.
What?
Yeah, you can barely see that
Eventually,
bit.
if you keep pulling on the silk, it will break. And at that point, the force applied divided by the cross-sectional area is called its ultimate tensile strength.
We're at about 600.
Ultimate tensile strength.
To put that in perspective, if you had a rope of spider silk that had a cross-sectional area of 1 square
Centimeter.
centimeter, roughly the size of your little finger, it could support about 60,000 newtons of force. That's the weight of a fully grown African elephant.
Now, which one of y'all knew that? I'll wait. None, nigga. I didn't know that either.
And that's not even the strongest spider silk out there.
Breaking stress wasn't incredible for this piece of silk.
Deep in the jungles of Madagascar lives the Darwin's bark spider. Its diet consists of flying insects that zip over wide rivers. So to catch its prey, the Darwin's bark spider has
That
to
baby
spin giant webs
flying,
that stretch
spinning
up
that
to 25
bit.
meters over open water.
That's
To
crazy.
survive that kind of distance and tension, its silk has to be incredibly strong. It has an ultimate tensile strength of around 1,600 megapascals. That's more
I've
than
seen a
twice
spider
the
do
strength of
that.
our sample.
Like,
But
not in real life.
experimental ultra-high strength steels can reach an ultimate tensile
That's
strength
your
of nearly
geographics.
3,000 megapascals. That's about 3 times that of typical dragline silk. But steel is also about 6 times denser. So for 2 ropes with the same mass and length, the silk rope has 6 times the cross-sectional area. 6 times the area at 1/3 the strength, well, that gives a rope that can take twice the force before it snaps. This measure of strength relative to mass is called specific strength. And it means that for the same mass and length, spiderwebs can withstand roughly twice the force of ultra-high strength steel before breaking.
So that's where ounce
So-
for ounce spider silk is quite strong. You've got to think about what is the application you're talking about using this material in. Is it somewhere where you don't care about weight and you need the strength? Then steel's going to be perfectly fine. But if
Yeah.
weight matters, spider silk is really the champion there for tensile strength.
So wait,
Strength alone isn't enough. To see why, look at rock climbers. If a rock climber was just hanging, all we would care about was if the rope could support their weight. That's strength. But climbers don't just hang, they fall. And now the rope has to bring them to a stop, which means absorbing that kinetic energy. Stop the fall in a short distance, and the energy has to be absorbed quickly. The forces are enormous. Stretch it out, and that same energy is absorbed gradually, so the forces are lower. So to absorb more energy without snapping, it has to stretch further. And that's actually not so different from spider silk.
So a bug hits this
Yeah.
web, you've got to stop the flight
So
of
we
that
putting
bug pretty quickly. And you
rock
could
climbing
do it by
into
just building a really stiff structure, think like a brick wall,
spider
and you
webs.
throw a tennis ball against it. You're going to stop that ball instantly. But that doesn't work very well if you want to catch a meal,
It'll bounce.
because it'll just fall out. And so it helps to slowly decelerate the insect so that the web has time to stick to it and keep the meal for the spider to subdue.
So the spider silk has to be quite stretchy.
This piece of silk stretched to 70% of its length before it broke, which is really
70%?
Now, every tiny bit of stretching absorbs a little bit of energy. If you add all these tiny amounts together, the result is the total energy the material absorbs before breaking. On a stress
70%,
strain graph,
bro,
it's
that's a
proportional to
lot.
the area under the curve. This is the material's toughness. Kevlar, the material used in bulletproof vests, whose whole job is to take the energy of a bullet and spread it out before it reaches the body.
Oh,
It
Kevlar.
has a toughness of up to 50 megajoules.
No wonder that nigga shot that nigga like that.
Experimental ultra-high strength steel has a toughness of around 170 megajoules per cubic meter. But spider silk?
This piece of silk had a toughness of about 205 megajoules per cubic meter.
So that might be like 4 times Kevlar.
But the silk from the Darwin's
4
bark
times
spider
Kevlar.
has a peak toughness of 520 megajoules per cubic meter. That's
Damn.
roughly 3 times the strongest steel out there, and 10 times as tough as Kevlar.
Damn.
Kevlar has a very high tensile strength, but it's also quite stiff.
It's
Compared with
absorbable,
stretchy
right?
spider silk, that means that the stress-strain graph rises sharply and fails before it can stretch very far. So it's not able to absorb as much energy. And that's why spider silk wins on toughness.
But it's the ultimate in green chemistry. They're not using the high temperature or the caustic solvents that most of the polymer industry uses to make high performance threads. They're doing it at room temperature inside a living body with the same basic building blocks that you use to build your hair and your skin.
Now, the secret to spider silk's
That's
unbelievable
crazy.
natural strength lies in how those building blocks are arranged. If you look inside a silk fiber, you'll find spider silk proteins called spidroins. In some regions, the spidroins are arranged in similar size and shape, and they're closely aligned along its length. They're kind of like stacked egg trays. These
Stacked
are
egg
nanocrystals.
trays.
In other areas, the Spiderwebs aren't so uniform. Here they're less ordered, and they can move and change shape more freely. These are called the amorphous regions. Together, they work like a network of tiny rigid blocks connected by elastic cords, which I have in front
Amorphous
of me.
regions.
When I pull on the network, the cords stretch and they absorb energy. The blocks don't stretch much, but each one connects to several cords, which spreads the pull across the network. So the amorphous regions let the silk stretch, while the nanocrystals help it withstand a much larger pull. Together, they allow the silk to absorb a tremendous amount of energy before breaking, which makes it so tough. The result is a material that's stronger than steel by weight and also tougher than
Like
Kevlar.
Kevlar.
It sounds perfect for making climbing ropes, parachute cords, airbags, even bulletproof vests. But we actually aren't using spider silk for any of that, even though we've been trying to for centuries. In 1709,
Why we
the
have been
Frenchman
trying to?
François Xavier Bon painstakingly collected hundreds of spider egg sacs, boiled them, combed them like wool, spun them into thread, and then used them to make stockings that attracted the attention at the royal court. But this was harder than it sounds. As he later said, the only difficulty now lies in procuring a sufficient quantity of spider bags to make any considerable work of it. 3 centuries later, Simon Pierce and Nicholas Godley led a years-long project in Madagascar, in which teams of Malagasy workers gathered more than 1 million golden orb weaver spiders in
Nigga
the
just
jungle.
taking spiders,
They
bro.
extracted their silk and painstakingly wove and embroidered it.
Nigga just taking spiders silk, nigga, to make shit out of. They ain't even think about the animal. The fucking insect. They ain't think about the goddamn spider itself, nigga. It's probably making that bit like every fucking minute, but still though, bruh, like you milking that motherfucker for the fucking web, nigga. The web.
Into a single golden cape. Why hadn't they tried farming the spiders instead? Well, attempts to do that all run into the same problem. Spiders are cannibals.
The big problem with spiders is that they eat each other.
Yeah, they
That's
would
one
eat
of the
each
big
other.
problems, and then you can't just keep them in a tiny little container. You're gonna have a lot of real estate if you're gonna have a farm with 10,000 spiders on it.
Even if you could get your hands on that many spiders, as we've seen, milking them is difficult, and the spiders don't always cooperate.
Really cooperative
That's what I'm
spider
saying.
will give you 300 yards of silk. 100's a lot more typical, but they kind of have their own individual personalities. Some of them will just break the thread right away and not even cooperate with you.
That's why natural spider silk is so scarce. One supplier charges $700 for 100 milligrams, which works out to roughly
That's
$7
crazy.
million per kilogram.
That's
That's
crazy.
roughly 50 times the price of gold.
For no reason.
So we can't farm spiders for their silk, but we know what the proteins are, so surely we can just make them. Well, scientists have tried. By the late 1990s, researchers at DuPont took the genes that code for spider silk proteins and put them into E. coli and yeast. These living cells are like protein factories. One engineered cell quickly becomes millions. It worked, but scientists wanted an even more efficient method. So in 2001, a team in Germany tried implanting spider silk genes into plants like tobacco and potatoes.
What?
But if you really want to produce a lot of protein in a concentrated form, look at milk. To feed their young, mothers produce milk with high concentrations of proteins. So around the same time, a Canadian company called Nexia tried something much stranger. They put spider silk genes into goats,
What?
creating genetically modified spider goats.
Bro.
No, really,
What the fuck, bro? They gave real, come on, bro. They really gave goat spider fucking, genes, nigga. Like, they Spider-Man, bro. Like, what is this?
they made spider goats. These goats produce
Spider
milk chock
goats.
full of spider silk proteins. In one sense, it worked. All the experiments were able to produce spider silk proteins.
Spider silk
They ran into the same
proteins.
problem. From E. coli or yeast, these proteins were purified as a fine white powder. From plants, the purified proteins formed a viscous, gelatin-like liquid. And from goats, it was dissolved in the milk. None of these even vaguely resemble spider silk.
None.
And that's one of the
You just
the
did. You
secrets
just
that,
experimenting
any
on
company
animals
that
for no
really
reason.
wants to mimic spider silk at an industrial scale needs to kind of figure out is how to process silk proteins the way spiders do.
We don't need them.
But that's easier said than
Fuck
done.
is you talking about?
In a spider, it all starts in the silk gland, in a region called tail. Cells here make proteins called spidroins, and they secrete them into the fluid inside the gland.
Yeah, leave the spiders
Every
alone,
spidroin
man.
has 3 main parts. One end is called the N-terminal, and the other the C-terminal. And between them is a long repeating sequence of amino acids. This is called the repetitive region. Once inside the tail, the C-terminal ends pair up, which links neighboring spidroins together. But the N-terminal ends stay mostly separate. so the spidroans are still loose enough to bend, coil, and move around. Next, they move into the storage sac, where they're packed together at high concentrations. Normally, proteins this concentrated would stick to each other and clump into a solid, but this can be modified with a careful balance of salts and by changing the pH. The pH is a measure of the concentration of hydronium ions in a solution, and because hydrogen ions are little positive charges, you can think of the pH like a dial that controls the electrical charge on different parts of the protein. In the storage sac, the pH is tuned so that the N-terminal ends carry a net negative charge.
Okay.
Every protein carries the same charge, and since like charges repel, when you crowd them together, they shove apart instead of sticking together. Now, the spidroans are still crowded in this aqueous solution, and at such high concentrations, they begin to gradually rearrange. The N-terminals are attracted to water. These are hydrophilic, while the repetitive region is repelled by it. This is hydrophobic.
Hydrophobic.
So the spidroans rearrange, and you end up having these hydrophilic parts facing outward towards the water, and hydrophobic parts tucked inside away from it. They then form these tiny structures called micelles. Micelles cluster together into larger globules. These globules next enter the spinning duct.
The spinning duct?
For the dragline silk, the duct
So that bitch got a whole duck in that bitch.
But it gets skinnier and skinnier.
As the globules go through the narrow duct, the liquid near the walls rubs against the surface, and it moves more slowly, while the liquid in the middle moves faster. So the layers slide past each other, which is known as shear. These shear forces stretch and deform the globule.
You also remove some water.
And that forms a web.
You get a drop in pH, so it becomes a little bit more acidic as you go down this duct.
So the proteins are then being changed in two ways at once. Mechanically, they're being pulled and aligned, and chemically, that drop in pH means that there are now more positive hydronium ions in the solution. These bind to the negative parts of the proteins, neutralizing them. Now, all the proteins don't repel each other as strongly, and so the N-terminal ends begin pairing, linking the proteins into long chains. These chains are pulled through a tiny narrowing called the drawdown taper, which leads to the spigot. Here, the spider pulls the liquid through a small opening. This forces the liquid to speed up, and as it speeds up, it stretches. It's this final stretch that pulls neighboring spidroans tightly alongside one another. Now, depending on the sequence of amino acids, some sections fold into zigzag strands. These strands then interlock, and rows of hydrogen bonds stitch them into rigid sheet-like structures, which
That's
stack
crazy,
together
bro.
into the nanocrystals that give the spider silk its strength.
Nanocrystals?
In other sections, the spidroans don't fold as neatly. That's how you get the amorphous regions, which give the silk its stretch. Exactly how the proteins assemble inside
bro,
the
this
spinning
is
duct
crazy.
still being studied. No one fully understands it yet, and that makes recreating the process in a lab quite
That's difficult.
So scientists wondered, what if instead of starting from scratch, you used an animal that already has a spinner? This is
Always
exactly
using
what
an animal
researchers
that
at
already got a
Biocraft
spinner.
Laboratories, a biotech company in Michigan, have been working on. What's more, they're doing it with an insect that humans have been farming for nearly 5,000
We
years.
always farming some shit.
Legend, a Chinese empress was relaxing in her garden when something fell into her teacup. She looked inside and saw a cocoon. The hot water loosened it, and when she lifted it out, it unraveled into a single shimmering thread, so long that it stretched across her entire garden. This was silk. Whether or not that story's true,
Nigga, that's
eventually
nasty.
learned to farm the insect that made the thread. Silkworms. They're the caterpillars of the
Yes,
domesticated silk.
silkworms. That's
Silk
different.
quickly became one of the most valuable materials in the land. It dressed emperors and spurred trade connecting East Asia.
I
and
know they ain't
Europe,
had that much
so
silk out
much
there
so
in the
that
world.
It gave the trade route its name, the Silk Road. For nearly 2,000 years, China guarded the secret. But, of course, people were always trying to steal it. By the
There's not
mid-6th
that much
century,
silk
the
out
Byzantine
silky
Empire was in
fucking
trouble.
things out there.
Plague had devastated the population, and on top of that, the purchase of silk was draining its gold. The problem was that Byzantines couldn't make silk. Most of it had to come through Persia, the very empire it was fighting. So Emperor Justinian made a secret deal with two monks. They would travel east, find the source of silk, and then smuggle it back. They returned with the secret hidden inside their hollow canes. Silkworm eggs. This may be the first recorded case of industrial espionage in history. With that, Byzantium could finally make its own silk.
Yes.
Nowadays, we farm them by the millions.
That's crazy,
One moth
man.
lays 500 eggs.
Okay.
So when you talk about like growing productions, right? Like
One
my
moth
wife and I
lays
had a baby.
500
These
eggs.
guys, they have 500 babies, and they do it every 30 days.
So the researchers at Craig wondered,
Every
what if
30
we could make
days.
a silkworm spin spider silk instead?
But when we create a transgenic silkworm, we're taking the genetics of a silkworm and the genetics of a spider, and we're putting those together. We're taking the best aspects of both, and that's what we're doing to create our fibers.
They start by gluing eggs onto a slide, which they line up under a microscope.
So this is the microinjection station. We're talking about eggs that are the size of the head of a pen. We're talking about needles that are half a micron in diameter.
This part is
That's crazy, them
I
small
want to
needles.
inject. So as you see, this is the tungsten needle, and this is the glass capillary. And first, we'll poke a hole with the tungsten needle. I will actually move the eggs to capillary and poke.
The fluid carrying the spider DNA is then injected into the part of the egg that will eventually become the silkworm.
What?
But at this point, the genes are still separate. They have to become part of the silkworm's own DNA. And luckily, nature already has a way of doing that. If you take an insect like a moth and look inside its genome, you'll see some stretches of DNA that move around. They jump from one place in the genome to another. These are called jumping genes, or transposons. One specific one is called piggyback, and was first
Piggyback?
identified in a cabbage looper moth. Piggyback is a piece of DNA
How do we
with
know?
2 short sequences at its ends, and it works together with an enzyme that recognizes these ends, cuts the whole piece out, and inserts it somewhere else in the genome. Kind of like a natural cut and paste system.
So they
What
copy and
scientists
paste and shit.
realized is that if the enzyme only looks at the 2 ends, then you can keep those ends the same, but change what sits in the middle, and use that to implant the DNA of your choosing. So in the lab, the DNA in the middle is replaced with the spider silk gene. This, together with separate instructions for making the enzyme, is what's then injected into the silkworm egg. And inside the egg, the enzyme recognizes the familiar end sequences and cuts and inserts the spider silk gene into the silkworm's
So that
DNA.
means it's editing
If
genes.
everything works, it becomes a permanent part of the silkworm's genome. Now, a silkworm where the edit worked looks almost exactly like one where it didn't.
The first approach we used was creating transgenics with the glowing cocoon. A green fluorescent protein is what's making these guys glow that green color under this particular wavelength with that particular light filter in front of it.
It feels magical. And there's a living thing inside of it.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep, silkworm.
Creating a glowing effect.
Yeah.
But even if the DNA insertion is successful, it might not have ended up in the right place.
If I create the world's best recipe for
That
chocolate
is
chip
true.
cookies and I stick it in the pasta section,
Yeah.
you're probably not going to make a lot of chocolate chip cookies, right? Because you're not going to see it.
Yeah.
Same thing for this, right? We want the recipe in the right section of the right cookbook.
That's why getting the spider silk gene into the
But
silkworm
how you gonna do
isn't
that?
enough.
We really want the spider silk get incorporated into the silk gland, not any other tissue.
But piggyback only looks for a 4-letter DNA sequence, TTAA.
There's so many TTAA in their genome. You couldn't really control where they were.
So it's like there are a lot of different places where they could park.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
And that means that it won't spin pure spider silk.
If you had to estimate of the transgenic silk, like what percentage is spider DNA?
Like 6%, 10%.
That's insane to me.
So even with this limited gene transfer, the fibers still achieve much of the mechanical performance of pure spider silk.
Our average samples are usually
So,
about
Spider
60% of spider silk. Right?
silk is stronger than steel.
Show me any other place in the world where you can get materials that perform as 60%.
Why is he
spider
moving
silk
like
you
that?
can make cost effectively, right?
To push the 60% average
He must be
even
happy as
higher,
hell.
the insertion needs to be more targeted.
The next step is to create pure, what are called knock-in, knockout transgenics, where we will completely remove all aspects of the silkworm's native DNA for the silk and replace that completely with the spider silk protein.
And to do that, most of the leading labs in the field are exploring CRISPR-Cas9.
CRISPR
This tool has
Cas9.
2 parts. The first is a guide, a short piece of genetic code designed to match one exact stretch of DNA. Unlike piggyback, which recognizes a sequence just 4 DNA letters long, this guide matches about 20 letters, making it far more specific. The second is a cutting protein. When the guide finds its matching sequence, the protein cuts the DNA. Here, that spot is inside the silkworm's own gene for making silk. The cell immediately tries to repair the break, and scientists take advantage of this by also injecting donor DNA.
Donor
carrying the spider
DNA.
silk gene. As the cell repairs the cut, it copies in that donor DNA, stitching the spider silk
Copying
gene
and
into this
pasting.
one precise location. But this process is still in active development, and Craig is not the only group chasing the dream of spider silk. In Germany, AMS Silk is making proteins for fibers,
Yeah, everybody
coatings,
making
powders,
silk,
and
mm.
hydrogels. And in Japan, Spiber is brewing protein fibers through fermentation. Brands like Goldwyn and The North Face have already used a version of these fibers in their clothing. And the military has been interested too. In 2016, the U.S. Army funded
He's over
Craig
here
to
making
make
spider
plastic
silk.
shoe packs, panels layered with transgenic silk that are designed as potential body armor. And it's even being explored in medicine. For centuries, surgeons have stitched wounds together with silk. But now, a company called Neurotex is using spider silk to help repair damaged nerves. So if it can be produced cheaply, spider silk could find its way into clothing, armor, implants, even nerve repair. But to do that, we're gonna need a lot of it.
This
Yeah,
is
bro, that's a
our
whole world
specialized
full of it.
spider silk.
That's just
There
small
you go.
part.
This is the
They gotta get a
transgenic
whole
spider.
This is
world.
spider silk. This is transgenic spider silk.
This is like a bale. This is a hay bale of
Yep.
spider silk.
Top flight
Last
of the
year,
world,
we
Craig.
produced, about half a ton of spider silk cocoon. And this is so
Half a ton, bro.
But what about our original question? Can you use transgenic spider silk to swing like Spider-Man?
And they only made that.
So, Derek, I've got you here in a climbing gym for a very good reason. And the reason is underneath this dirty dish towel. Unveil it. Unveil it. Yeah, go.
All right. Okay. This looks like very.
You got a little bit of
inspiring.
spider silk.
So what's interesting is this is one continuous filament.
This is just one strand.
But each one of these strands is actually 10 individual silk filaments that are kind of connected.
All right. So you want me to hang from this?
I do want you to hang from it.
That is
Actually, I
connected.
want you to do more than just hang from it. I want you to swing.
This will be the first time ever anyone has ever swung from actual spider silk. Granted, this spider.
Yeah, I
silk
look at
came
dude
from
too. He a
lines of
good ass
spiders.
dude. He good he make good videos.
I don't know if it's gonna hold my weight, so let's see. In 3, 2.
Y'all think it's gonna hold his weight? Let me know in the comments. Yes or no. I think no. But kinda, I don't know. I'm on the fence. Oh, that bit working.
Really came close.
He's swinging. All right, that bit pop. Ah. Hanging on that spider silk. Spider silk. Damn, he over there having a good time.
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Okay, so we've seen it can hold your weight pretty reasonably.
It can hold
We can
everybody's
swing,
weight.
but I do
All
wanna
y'all
put it
weight.
to the ultimate test and get you up there. How much do you trust spider silk?
Tensile strength doesn't lie.
All right, let's get you up there.
We used the title.
I don't really know
Risk of My
about
Life
that.
To settle a physics debate too early.
That bit high as hell, bro. That bit break. We been swinging on this bitch.
Feels like it's gonna dig into my fingers.
This is crazy.
You know, her swinging on spider silk. That bit finna break. Nah, he let go. That shit was hurting his hands.
You gotta see my finger, man. Ooh, damn. Yeah, this is the problem with spider silk. It's thin, it's strong, and it just rips you open.
Now, if it isn't clear, we're not exactly web swinging experts, but we'd love to get the silk into the hands of someone.
That's crazy.
Tom Holland is a challenge. Yeah, I'm calling out Tom Holland. I'm calling out all them guys. Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire.
That boy hand messed up.
Come at me, bro.
Yeah, that's the end of the video, man. See, spider silk is stronger than steel, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Y'all like, comment, subscribe, man. Another video on the way, bruh. Road to 200, bro. I'm trying to get up. I'm trying to get up there, man. I'm trying to get up there, man. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's go, man. Yeah.